Support earns the most leaderboard points by May 20th, then every contributing player for that region will earn a 2017 MSI winners icon and a 3-day IP boost. I know you want that IP boost, right?
Yeah, I'm spamming those games. I want more IP.
You haven't gotten all the champions yet, Mark? What is that?
I swear I do. I'm playing all day, every day.
Well, as of today, Brazil is in the lead with the LLN and EULCS following close behind them. So, NA, you have some serious work to do. We'll be checking in to see who is in the lead throughout the entire tournament, and with the final countdown occurring on May 20th. So don't wait to rally behind your favorite region. Are you even able to do that while you're in NA?
Well, this is the closest that he's likely going to get to winning anything, so I think I'll hold on to that for the time being. But
there you go, there you go.
I'm still going to rep them proudly.
Sitting in second. All right, but now we got to talk about the teams that are prepping for our second match of the day. And while the play-ins have plenty of new names and faces, one that might jog some memories is, of course, Turkey's SuperMassive. We'll remember these guys from last year's MSI.
Yeah, these guys, they're going to be returning with a very similar roster to what they had back in the 2016 MSI, where they were able to get that surprising upset over Counter Logic Gaming. And at the very start of the tournament, people were like, oh, maybe this is it. Maybe the wildcard regions are stepping themselves up. But unfortunately for them, they did end up getting demolished throughout the rest of the tournament.
Looking to improve on last year's performance with a new face on the team as well. So majority of the roster remaining the same, but a couple new faces.
Yeah, Zeitnot coming in on the AD carry position now. Arguably, he's supposed to be a step up from their previous AD carry, Achu, also sharing spots with Nadius. But this roster has largely remained the same. This is very much still the same Supermassive that we saw back on MSI, and I feel that is an important thing, because rather than trying to bring in new and upgraded players, instead they've just focused on trying to nurture the talent that they have, this full Turkish lineup, and then trying to say that, hey, we can bring it to the rest of the world, and that's what they're looking to do today.
Now, on the flip side of the rift, they got to take down LJL's Rampage. There's a lot of hype around this team. Haven't made an MSI appearance until now, and so they do have a lot to prove here on the international stage, the larger international stage for the first time. But the expectations are high for this squad, even in this powerful group.
Right. I mean, they've always been one of the top two teams in Japan. There's been basically them and the Demolition team. So those are the big two names. And then this is the first MSI appearance for a Japanese team. So a lot of pressure is going to be on them. They almost made it out of the group stage for Play-ins for Worlds, but just barely missed that one. And so they had a big change-up since then, kind of the opposite of Supermassive. They have two Korean players, in Dara and Tussle, that they kind of rebuilt the team around. They were with the team previously, so this isn't like some new Korean imports joining them, and then they filled it in with Japanese players. So overall, a pretty new look for them, but looking to make some big moves in their first international tournament for MSI here.
And the big thing for me is this upgrade in the mid and AD carry. We talked about it earlier on at the start of the day, but during their performance at the international wildcard region, or qualifiers rather, they struggled in these particular roles. Their mid laner often fell behind, just in terms of during the laning phase, and their bottom lane could not get the leads because of the plays that Dara like to make around the rest of the map. But now they've gotten themselves these new players. They've made what it should be, in their eyes, an upgrade, and as a result, you should now see a little bit more consistency to allow Tussle and Dara to make the plays that they're famous for in their region.
Upgraded rosters here for both squads. How do we see the play styles clashing? Because we just saw two hyper-aggressive teams that wanted to fight constantly. We saw even from behind, Direwolves was looking to make picks and start fights, skirmishes. That's how they feel they're built to win the game. What about here for Rampage and Supermassive? Going to be a more tempered game, maybe?
I think you might see that. It depends how Rampage really holds up, because when I was watching their games, like I said, they were a lot more controlled. They were using their champions make-up set plays. So when they had the Talia, it was a lot about getting proper walls and cutting people off, or using it to move around the map, versus just all-inning with Talia, who actually has enough burst to really do that. The only thing is, like, sometimes it feels like they focus on objective play. Like, I saw a couple random 5v5s around things that didn't really matter. There's a Rift Herald fight. But for the most part, they are looking to go for the more controlled style, the more objective play.
And I would argue that Supermassive is actually very similar in terms of their style, because they seem to have a lot more of a repertoire in their play. We've seen both from the junglers early game focus, whereas also scaling. We've seen a lot of control mages as well as assassins coming out from the mid lane. Like, they seem to have a big wealth of options available to them in their playbook, and the question is what they want to bring out today. But I think that they should be able to match a very similar control style to what we're expecting from Japan.
It's interesting for Supermassive, given last year's performance at MSI, and we talk about, wanting to do better than their their previous performance. They've got to get through the play-in to even get back to that stage, right? The whole addition of the play-in stage here at MSI changes the landscape of how you get there. So first, we've got to prove ourselves to even get into that position where we might be able to beat a group in the actual group stage itself. Within this game, do you guys give an edge to one team or the other? I mean, again, this is all coming from opposite regions, and so I know that I'm asking you to kind of flip a coin, but what's your feeling here?
I mean, I personally, just in terms of play style, really prefer the way Rampage plays. I'm sure everybody is the same way. That's why we were both kind of saying there are dark horses for this group. But the big concern is when you start comparing regional strengths, you don't really know how they're going to match up. So there's that concern where maybe they do want to play a more controlled style, but they're just getting abused in lanes. And you said that happened previously. Sure, they've made upgrades, and it's looked better in the regional games that they've played, but now that they're back on the international stage, is it really going to hold up against SuperMassive? I don't know.
You talk about getting abused in lanes. We saw what, early kills in lanes can result in just this first game. So if Rampage can't really stack up, or we do have those minor mispositions or executional failures in the lane phase, things could kind of spiral out pretty quickly. Any final thoughts?
The thing that I'm really looking forward to, and the thing that I think viewers should keep an eye on, is both the supports. Both Dara and Dumbledoge have a similar style of roaming around the map and trying to make plays around the mid lane. And if either one of them gets the opportunity first, that's where things are really going to start to go off.
Will we see the Bard? I sure hope so. Let's send it over to the casters to get us into that game.
Welcome back, everybody. We have another game coming your way with TCL SuperMassive versus LJL's Rampage. Before we get into Champ Select, let's check out those starting lineups. On the blue side, SuperMassive with Fabulous in the top lane, Stomaged in the jungle, Naru mid, Zeitnot bot, Dumbledoge supporting, and Exarant on coach.
Suddenly want some Carl's Jr. I don't know what's up with those jerseys. Anyway, on the red side, it's going to be Rampage from Japan in the LJL. Top lane is Evi, Tussle in the jungle, Ramune in the mid with Yutori, Moyasi in the bot lane with Dara on support. I've seen his name with an SH in it, so it's Yutori Moyasi. Okay.
All right,
Moyasi is how I had heard it before with like a she sound. Anyway.
See, that's one of the tricky parts about casting these new teams and casting in this new environment. You don't know the player names as well, and some of them are tricky.
Coach, though, his name is 3-4.
Okay, that one's not as tricky.
Easy mode.
Numbers are not quite as difficult as some of the other things are, but kind of what the analyst desk was talking about right before they tossed things over to us. The support matchup in this game should be a lot of fun to watch. I absolutely agree with him on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Dara, one of the Korean imports that had come through, been with the team for 2 years, actually spent time as a sub back and forth, finally got his starting spot on the roster, and he's a big part of the team. He's a core of the team, which is interesting because he's one of the 2 Korean players on it that the team was rebuilt around, even though it's a Japanese team. They're fluent as well in Japanese. They're able to fully communicate with the team and lead them as well. So watching him up against Dumbledoge is going to be really interesting.
And Dumbledoge is a player who's got quite a lot of experience at previous MSIs.
Yeah.
One of the very few players out there to have 3 MSI attendances under his belt.
Yeah. Dumbledoge, MVP, of course, of the TCL last split, but also, like I said, one of the accolades he has, there are only 4 people to attend all 3 MSIs. Faker, Bang, Wolf, and Dumbledoge.
One of these things is
The
not
4
like the
gods.
other. One of these things you don't normally associate with the other 3, and Dumbledoge is he's the dark horse of the 4 horsemen of MSI.
Dark dog.
The dark dog, and he's coming to try to make an impact here in this game. We already saw the Canids take victory over the Wolves in game number 1, so maybe it's just a dog's day, and in game number 2, Dumbledoge will be able to carry his boys to find that victory as well.
That's absolutely true. I love watching him as well. Dumbledoge is a player that the 2 times that I have seen him at MSI, he's really kind of had those performances where you're like, oh, he's actually a really good player. He's got a good idea of what to be doing at all points in the game. And just like we saw Dude, the French guy actually popping off last game on Thresh, we might see some Bard play. We might see some really good roams here from Dumbledoge. But also, remember, Dara is somebody who can play for the lane and free up Yutori for later.
And Dude's Thresh was simply a pleasure to watch. If we get another support making plays like that, I will be more than happy to watch it, as we are into Champion Select here for the second game of the day between Turkey's SuperMassive and Japan's Rampage. Syndra and Varus banned away from SuperMassive. Rampage going to take Graves off the board first. Let's see what they go for now. And LeBlanc will be choice number 2.
All right, and so there's some interesting things here because you haven't seen these teams play on 7.8. And so you're kind of taking shots in the dark at some of these guys. But also SuperMassive, their TCL finals were actually the most recent finals that we've had. So they've actually had the least amount of time to adjust to 7.8 out of all of the teams. So Turkey's super team, the all-Turkish lineup, the only one in the TCL, has a little bit of a disadvantage in that court.
And that's got to be really cool for all the fans of the TCL, all the Turkish players, to know that the best team in your region, the team representing the TCL, is the only one with the homegrown squad. The 5 Turkish players showing, hey, yeah, you might be able to have imports, but our synergy together, our ability to work together as a team, we're good enough as an all-Turkish squad to be the ones that represent our country and represent our region.
Definitely gets that pride going. And right here, SuperMassive, first pick will be the Lulu. Ivern still on the table. 4 bans towards the mid lane, and that's where my eyes are right now. Naru, considered the best mid laner in Turkey, up against Ramune, who actually took the spot from their previous mid laner, and he's a rookie. He just finished his first split.
Naru not just considered the best mid laner in Turkey, but the best player in Turkey. He's got a hell of a title behind him. He's been to all the TCL finals. He has some small mistakes, some inconsistencies here and there, but overall, a top caliber player from the region. Have to see what he can do in this game up against that total rookie in Ramune, who now has a Lee Sin and an Ashe on his team, going up against the Lulu, the Ivern, and the Caitlyn locked in for SuperMassive.
Yeah, SuperMassive already looking at a protect Zeitnot composition. Zeitnot, decent amount of hype around this guy. Was told to watch him during these games because he's been one of the best AD carries in the region, and he's the #1 threat of the team. You think about Naru, we talked about how he's the best player in Turkey, or touted as. Zeitnot is the #1 threat of the team, according to most analysts for SuperMassive.
Ramune grabbing himself that Talia as the final pick of the first round of the draft as we move into the second part of the banning phase. Let's see what these guys decide to target, because we've got 80 carries and junglers locked in on both sides, but then you've got a support versus a mid laner, so the bans are going to differ a little bit in terms of what roles they're going.
I think you ban mid if you're RPG. Get rid of some more, because there's already 4 bans. You've taken one away. Orion off the table, so no supported mid there. It could be a Lulu mid, could be the potential for a Karma mid or something that'll help out there from SuperMassive, but we'll see. Depends on if they're going all in or not on that type of composition.
Mid lane targeted by RPG, taking off the Echo. First of their 2. Zyra banned away from SuperMassive, so going after the support role. One more ban for each side. Rampage will decide to remove Shen. They don't want to allow any more shielding onto a comp that's already got a Lulu and an Ivern. It's really difficult for what it is already. You don't want to have the Shen in there on protection duty as well.
And then, of course, I think the Gragas becomes next on the tier list for top laners, with Nautilus being somebody who actually received nerfs 7.7, 7.8 to reduce his mana regen per level, but also increase the mana cost of his E. So Gragas is kind of your premier top laner in disengage/engage compositions that aren't involving a Shen.
Gragas is locked in by Rampage, deciding to pick up that power pick for themselves. Hey, if it's the best thing on the board, why not take it?
And we'll see what else pops up here, because I love that Gragas. It's going to give them some engage, and I like it.
Oh, is this going to be the first time we get to see him? I was really hoping we'd get to see it
he's
here
locked in.
On day 1, Zyrene. Galio locked in for SuperMassive. And you know, he might not have a direct shield, but massive damage reduction on whoever you target. They try to go on top of that Caitlyn. The heroic entrance should be spectacular.
Yeah, and the fact as well that Galio's damage reduction gives him 8% more per 100 magic resistance he has purchased, which means that when he's giving that to somebody else, he's going to have a really good time. It scales up from 20% to 40% damage reduction that he gives to somebody. And the big part is that scaling I talked about with the magic resist. Up against a team that has Talia, a Gragas that he'll be laning against, you'll build some MR. You'll build it early, so he's going to be offering even more to that Caitlyn.
The final pick on SuperMassive, the Ahri, the final pick on the side of Rampage, a Thresh support. So back-to-back games now, we're going to get to see Thresh being played. The question is, can he make the same amount of plays that we saw from Diud in game number 1 of the MSI play-ins today?
And this will be rough because SuperMassive, kite back composition that wants you to engage on them. Galio, better in those situations because when you cast the R, it's when you initially cast it is where he will fly, as opposed to where the person is when he lands. So if you're kiting backwards, it puts him in a frontline position, puts him in a position to peel for his team and get the taunt down. So SuperMassive, they're looking to protect Zeitnot, but they're also looking to protect Naru or potentially use him for engage. Whereas Rampage, engage top, engage jungle, engage support, engage AD carry, and engage mid. They are looking to fight. SuperMassive definitely have to be on their guard against Rampage.
Yeah, Rampage has some long-range ways to start those things off as well. When you've got the Ash arrows coming in, you've got the Talia walls from a long way away. If you're even a little bit out of position, this team can punish.
Yeah, if you have vision denied, you have to be scared.
See the crowd getting excited again for the second game of the day. Of course, not quite as much insanity without the home team playing in this one, but still should be one entertaining match to see, with the first time that we're going to see Galio here on MSI. The first time I've casted a game with new Galio.
Ah, yeah, he was enabled for China for their 7.7 and 7.6 patches.
Interesting thing, China's still playing their playoffs too.
Yeah.
Ooh, they're taking their sweet time doing it. That's got to be an interesting situation for them, having to have someone attend MSI right after getting your playoffs done during our play-ins for MSI.
Yep, they took about 2 to 3 weeks off for Chinese New Year, and it put them a little bit behind, but still, SuperMassive versus Rampage. The best tricodes, SUP, RPG.
SUP and RPG.
Gotta say, though, Rampage is still the second best RPG to come out of Japan. Love me some Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy is the best, absolutely. Got to agree with that one. Tussle and Ramune going to be hanging around here at the entrance to their jungle, making sure Stomage can't come in, find any sort of vision nice and early on. Just doing a little bit of dance moves back and forth, taunting each other.
We got some chance going for these teams as well. Of course, SuperMassive, they have a bit of hype around them because they were the representatives for the wildcard region previously last year at 2016 MSI. But then Rampage, there's hype around them as well. They're kind of the enigma. We talked about they're the dark horse of this group stage in Group A because, sure, the CB LOL has historically been good. SuperMassive has a track record. Japan and the LJL does not.
Fresh.
Pretty much, they've been around for a while, a few years now, but the LJL, after having, I believe, 3 finals now, that Rampage has been in all 3, still have not had that breakout international performance. They've made some MSIs, they've made some wildcard tournaments, but they haven't made the group stages of MSI or Worlds. Rampage actually came close. 2016 Worlds, they went 3 and 4 in the group stage, almost made it out of the group stages, did not, and then the roster blew up. They kept Tussle and they kept Dara, the 2 Koreans. They got the 7th Heaven top laner and AD carry with Evie and Yutori, and then they picked up a new mid laner who was a rookie. So there was a lot of risk here for Rampage, and the fact that it was a completely new roster in terms of like people starting and actually bringing in new synergies here, it's impressive that they made the finals with an organization that basically had done that every time. Matt just shows they have good structure behind them, and they've been one of the top 2 teams in Japan the whole time.
SuperMassive doing what we didn't see from the Ivern in the previous match, going for that very early buff steal, denying the blue.
But you can see here, Ramune pushing forward, Tussle goes in, wards immediately, is on that blue buff, knows exactly what happened.
Realizes his was stolen, decides to steal the enemy buff back, preventing the Ivern from really getting ahead, allowing it to 3-buff him. Makes it so that everything stays even in that jungle, allows Tussle to stay caught up in terms of levels, not fall behind, because you know, in this iteration of the jungle, in Season 7, losing camps can be very, very detrimental because of the incredibly long respawn timers on those camps.
Yeah, the fact that they spawn every 2 minutes and they come back later, 2:30, you're like, all right, let's hope that we're in a good spot. Let's hope that I actually have a good route for myself. And that's why counter jungling allows you to kind of push your opponent around. Just for example, Stomage just took this bottom side of the map and said, all right, for the next few minutes, Lee Sin is on top side. You better play safe and keep yourself warded there, Galio, because that's where he would look for a gank. Not this bottom side of the map, because Stomage is just all over this.
Yeah, Stomage grabbing himself that Scuttle Crab, going to go back and harvest the Gromp that he set the Grove up on earlier as well. Making sure that he takes all of this jungle. You saw Tussle deny most of the jungle from the top side as well, just leaving the small wolf.
He left a small wolf, exactly. He didn't counter jungle the whole camp on that top side. So he's actually leaving the Ivern with something that he has to spend some HP on. And of course, for Ivern, if the big camp is gone, big part of the camp is gone, it's an instant bow and he can take the camp. So he doesn't have to spend a smite or waste any time. Instantly kills it.
Fabulous and Evie in the top side, staying even so far. Low mana on Fabulous, but I don't think he's really too super concerned about this. Winds of War.
Gotta be concerned though.
Pushing this wave up. Tussle though, coming in for the gank.
Evie has to stay on top of him.
Flash away, flashes after, Sonic Wave, Resonating Strike, one more auto attack does it, and First Blood goes over to the Japanese representative.
We were talking about keep your eyes on Tussle. He's definitely looking for a scrappy fight in that top lane. Galio, Fabulous, he had his E up but it will push you back, and then you will charge forward. It could actually put you back before where you were actually charging it, and it can be harmful. So Fabulous, because Evie and Tussle actually played around the Galio, they stayed right on top of him the whole time, making sure that he can't get that E off. Doesn't really have too much mana either. So yeah, the fact that he was using mana in lane, it's one of Galio's weaknesses. You might pick up some Doran's Blades, gets the taunt, but still dies through the damage reduction as well. And yeah, picks up a Doran's ring for himself there. So Fabulous has a little more mana regen. That's typically what you'll see is triple Dorans for the top laners that spend a whole bunch of mana so they can constantly wave clear and get that back.
Fabulous down 1 Doran's compared to 3. Of course, he does have the boots and the corrupting potion, so a little bit of other resources available there for him as Dumbledore and Zeitnot shove up here in the bottom lane, building themselves up a small CS advantage early. Tussle, level 5, closing in on that level 6, that Dragon's Rage potential. You know Lee Sin really unlocks once he has the ability to get those kicks.
I didn't check the bush. There's actually a control ward there in the Pixel Brush, so yeah, he's looking for those plays, but he has to be cognizant of his surroundings and actually conscious of what's going on. Look out for those types of things.
Fabulous grabbing the taunt.
Oh, it's just
the damage.
It's a big combo from Galio. If you actually get caught up by Galio, you can see he's even behind in items by 2 Doran's rings in terms of actual damage, but he's going to be dishing out a whole bunch because the way that Galio works, where he'll get the Q, he'll get the E, and then he'll get the auto attack, and it's just a ton of damage there. And you can see Fabulous, despite being ganked, already level 6. Level 6 first, because he has the shove advantage.
Stomaged trying again to counter jungle his opponent, successfully doing so. Just going to go ahead and use the smite to get that Gromp very quickly as Tussle shows up, walks into the brush.
Yeah, just to check the camp, right? Because that could have been a brush to check if the Gromp was up or not. If he was placing it over the wall, because the bush range is absurd. But look at that, actually found Stomaged. He's level 6. Tussle doesn't want to keep going, though, because his bottom lane is shoved in by the Lulu and the Caitlyn.
Yeah, going into a Lulu and an Ivern, that's a lot of shields to have to burst through, and a level 6 Lee Sin probably not going to get the job done on his own.
Yep, control the vision, control the area, free up Ramune to actually roam around, who's gone for a Catalyst here. Catalyst of Aeons.
A little bit of a CS advantage mid lane for Naru, but we kind of talked about this in Champion Select. Naru, the best player in Turkey versus the total rookie in Ramune. You would sort of expect a little bit of a lead to come out for Naru early on because he is the player that, just looking at the matchup between these two, you would expect to come out on top.
Yeah, and Ramune, there were some worries that when he came onto the scene, you know, he had played in a little bit of the semi-pro league or the challenger league in Japan, but there was kind of a battle going on between the previous Rampage mid laner and Saros, who's considered kind of like the Jensen and Bjergsen, if you're kind of extrapolating it to NALCS, of Japan, where Saros is kind of the best player. He's the Bjergsen. The former Rampage mid laner was the Jensen, but not really actually able to hold up too much against Saros, but he did in the finals and have a good showing. So Ramune, now he's kind of gaining some momentum, gaining some hype around him in terms of what he's able to accomplish here. And there's high hopes for this rookie mid laner.
And there's some more of what you were talking about in game number 1, Zyrene, the Ivern ability to pass off the buffs, make sure that he's got them as well as his mid laner having them. Just creates an opportunity for both himself and his teammate to get the best of both worlds. Tussle does successfully secure his own red, keeping that one away from Stomaged.
And it's so interesting because we talk about how like Ivern will hand off blue buffs and stuff like that. The benefit of Ivern being able to hand off blue buffs the way he does is typically the mid laner will leave and go get the blue buff with the jungler, which then the enemy can imply, jungler on that side, okay, he's there. Whereas now you can leave it. Ivern was already on the top side of the map moving up, and that's when Ahri dipped into Fog of War. So you can't really infer exactly where Ivern is every time the mid laner goes for blue buff. But then also, you duplicate the red. I think that's the big one, because you hand off the blue buff to your mid laner anyway. Now your AD carry or your top laner run around with a red buff in lane.
They get regeneration, they get extra burn on auto attack. It's really difficult to deal with, having to lane against something like that.
Yeah, call that Caitlyn over right now. Let's go. Get that lane bully Caitlyn alongside. This is why you see like Caitlyn plus Ivern, even though it's not like a hyper carry. This means that at 8 minutes or the second respawn of your buffs, you get that red buff, you get to run into lane, place down bushes, get her that extra charging on headshot from her passive, and then she's just good to go. So that might be what they go for here, is a siege situation where they hand off the red buff. Now Zeitnot maybe looking to apply some pressure here.
Stomaged hanging around. Even if the Lee Sin should show up, they were ready with the Ivern, but now working his way back out of here. Doesn't want to be sitting around for too long without doing much of anything.
Yeah, Ivern spotted as well on the control ward on the backside of his red. Going to clear out his camps that he had primed. And he'll pick up those. He'll put him still on the bottom side of the map, so the route that he chose kind of indicates that he still wants to be active on this bottom part.
Tussle will find that control ward placed down by his opponents. Clear that one out before going back to the Scuttle Crab potentially. Dara walking himself away from that root caller. Stomage again hanging around this bottom lane, really paying a lot of attention to this, wanting to give Zeitnot even more help than just that red buff and really get him going, allow him to be that #1 threat on this Supermassive team.
Yeah, and he's got traps ready to go. Looking to actually set some of those up. He is actually maxing it second, so it's not... he's put 3 points in Q. Let's see what he does at level 7. Levels up. Okay, so he's going for the Q max to shove the wave to get underneath the turret and help him get there, because they are chipping away at that turret over and over again. This bottom turret, you can see Ivern's still hanging around that bottom side. It's going to be taking a lot of damage in the near future here, especially since they just saw Tussle start running for the hills.
So much attention being paid to this bottom lane right now. Supermassive really wants to grab this turret first blood for themselves. They're
Tussle?
so incredibly close to
Arrow
it.
missed!
Enchanted Crystal Arrow not finding its mark. Neither will the Death Sentence. Tussle cannot get in there.
And this is the thing with the RPG composition, is they have a lot of engage. It gives you a lot of chances to misengage. But if you miss all of it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, then you're not really doing a whole lot of anything, and you just end up conceding your turret.
Yep, that's the lane
first
advantage.
objective of the game goes over to Supermassive.
Gives them a 600 gold lead, and they'll continue to push here. And now they get control of the bottom side jungle as well. You have to figure out where your advantages are. Looks like Fat Fabulous versus Evie. Flash up again.
Fab Fabulous not having the best time up here. And go for it, bodying him around and smashes him down with the K.
Oh, and you can see Fat Fabulous there, not happy with that on the player cam. Face down afterwards, just like his champion.
Was not respecting what the Gragas was capable of doing there, and that final hit coming out from Evie.
And he was in a position where before, he's like, all right, I'm great. I'm bullying him around. I do more damage. Then they both come back with magic resist items in the Spectre's Cowl, but there's still 3 Doran's rings for Evie, and Evie is gone for the W max first, the percent HP, the low cooldown on it, and it gives him a lot of damage. 4-second cooldown on that Drunken Rage. So he's constantly healing himself up, taking less damage, and dealing out a whole boatload in return.
That's why that final hit was just able to smack his opponent right down into the ground underneath the turret. That's why he had the confidence to flash forward, knowing he only had that one shot.
Exactly, and it was a Grasp of the Undying to boot, so definitely gave him the big bonk.
Biggest bonk possible. Now going to put Rampage up 2-0, although the gold is dead even because of the turret difference enjoyed by Supermassive, who also managed to collect themselves the first Drake of the game in a Mountain Drake. They'll have extra control for future objectives.
Right here on top, they know the flash is down. If they can hit him with something like an arrow or get a hook onto him, then the Galio may be as good as dead unless he can get an ultimate off and try to escape. Look for the roam, though. Tussle. They know he doesn't have
found
Q.
out securing that Scuttle Crab, jumping himself away with the safeguard. Easy escape onto a ward.
Yep. And now, Stomage. They're going to hover around. They're going to check their buffs real quick. There goes red buff over to Tussle, who'll start looking at that one, I guess.
Stomage not going with the straight rush onto the redemption like we saw in the first game. Instead, going for the Tracker's Knife, going for the mobility boots.
Mobility boots is so you can start getting those counter jungles down. And because Tussle got first blood, you really want to keep tabs on him. I like the decision here from Stomage. Because they have so much defense anyway, and you can even see in Zeitnot, first item QSS, like, just making sure he doesn't get hit by hooks or arrows or anything, and shuts that down immediately. I'm mind blown at that decision, because it's actually quite a good one, because they have such a lane advantage as well.
Very, very respectful of the setup that his opponents can make in this game.
And when you say, okay, we're slightly ahead in pressure, how do we lose this game? It's I get caught by a QSS. Can't tell you how many times I've seen people not buy a QSS.
It's definitely a mistake that can cost you a game.
Absolutely.
But Zeitnot is not going to be making that mistake today, although it will set behind early as Dara finds himself a little bit far forward. Going to be dropping the box, and double doge is destroyed. Stomage going to be taken down next. The barrel finds him. Zeitnot flashing himself backwards. Hero's entrance used by the Galio trying to keep him alive, but Zeitnot, QSS or not, he is out of there. Fab Fabulous keeping himself alive, but the only one in the fight to be able to say so. It's a 3-0 for Rampage.
Rampage going off, having a rampage themselves. The LJL team with a lot of hype behind them. Definitely coming up big there. That fight was actually very interesting. Dara was caught, and then the kick from Tussle did enough damage before the person that he kicked died that it knocked up Stomaj from what I had seen. We'll see it here again, because Tussle's in the right bush. They see Dara, they think it's a numbers advantage. This kick, Dumbledore dies, but it still knocked up Stomaj, and then they kill Stomaj. Zeitnot flashes there, and then you'll see him QSS this. You can QSS knockups, but he doesn't have flash to reposition himself. You need that flash there, but he used it to not get knocked in the first place.
That is the key with the QSS and being knocked. Or like you've seen crazy plays where Lee Sin tries to kick somebody and they QSS it and then immediately flash back.
Yeah, you got to flash.
It looks really cool if you have flash. If you don't have flash, you get people typing lull because you tried to QSS a knockback.
Exactly. You have to have something that repositions your character. There are some champions that have moves that can do that, but Caitlyn is not. Gonna need one of those flashes. You can see Rampage, they're definitely not as good in terms of the pressure game, but the engages, because they have so much of it, have been on point, and because they're ahead, they can keep forcing it. Ramune here, but I don't think they can do anything with it.
Not going in on that one.
Yeah.
Not going in on that one. Hextech GLP, the first item over onto Ramune.
The Super Soaker.
Having that extra damage coming out from the Icicle Burst whenever he's able to go in. There you go, seeing him sprayed onto Naru right there.
Yep, get the slow and make sure that you have enough HP to survive a burst from Ahri. But Tussle,
speaking of burst, Tussle jumping
back
himself backwards. Fab Fabulous going right back into the fight. Hook not going to be finding anyone. Evie zoning Naru away. Fab Fabulous getting himself out as well. Everybody walking away from this one.
Evie as well. This guy, he came over from 7th Heaven to join RPG. So 7th Heaven was kind of like the third team. It was the one that wasn't Detonation, Focus Me, or Rampage in most people's minds. But they had talent, and you can see Evie, guy's a great leader for the team. Everybody's been able to kind of rally behind him after the heart of the team really left with the former top laner and AD carry. So Evie's kind of picked that up, and they have a new potential to carry from the top lane. Evie loves playing things like carries, but he can play the tanks and lead his team to a victory, whereas it wasn't really an option for Rampage previously with their top laner.
You know, talking about being able to carry and being one of the big players on the team, looking at Yutori, the AD carry on the side of Rampage.
Oh, yeah.
When you talk about him, when you hear people talk about this team and what he's capable of doing, they say he's really good, but it's especially outside of the laning phase. Laning phase can be where he struggles, but once that's over, he really just flips that switch.
If they're willing to sack the laning phase, take minimal losses, then they might look like a pretty good team outside of it. Because what we saw there, complete bully bottom lane. Red buff going over, Caitlyn Lulu, it's just actually getting smashed. They picked the Thresh, they picked Dara to help enable him and keep him safe later on. But like you said, all I hear about Yutori is the guy's a god, but outside of lane is where he really shines, and Dara helps him get there. The fact they didn't even try to contest the bottom turret and let it go down, said, all right, 1,000 gold to the enemy team and first turret, I don't care.
Laning phase is over now.
Exactly.
We don't have to play that game anymore. Yutori can now get to the part of the game where he excels. We'll just let it happen.
And I think Ashe would be a great champion for that because you have so much effect post level 6 as an AD carry. You don't really have to worry too much about the lane phase with your 600 range. You can kind of get by and it's passable, and sometimes you bully people, but in this matchup you don't, and then you have the engage to help your team. And that's the thing. SuperMassive, they have a great win condition of protecting their Caitlyn, but RPG have to watch the engages.
Ramune forced to flash himself out or otherwise be caught out by Fab Fabulous. Daisy going underneath the turret, but SuperMassive will not find their first kill of the game that easily. Ramune with some smooth moves getting himself out of trouble.
Yeah, has to blow the flash there. Does have the cleanse, but decided not to use that there.
Tussle barely stepping out of the maximum range of the REQ there, keeping himself safe as he clears away some of that vision. And vision's going to be very important as this game goes on. You talked about it earlier, but if you don't have vision up against a team with Talia and Ashe, you've got to be very worried all the time.
Absolutely. You have to be kind of scooped by that one.
Evie pushing up and constantly just applying so much pressure to Fab Fabulous, who's just got to clear all these waves out and just deal with it pretty much.
Puts on the sunglasses. He's definitely got to deal with that one. But Evie applying pressure, and the big thing I'm looking for here is SuperMassive. They have like one of the clearest win conditions you could ever have in League of Legends. Protect your AD carry.
Yep,
problem
keep that
here
net alive.
Is that you're actually behind, and the way to play this is you want to be in situations where you're sieging turrets, but sometimes the sieges are baits and they get turned around on you. But they have to be careful of those situations and look for them. They have to apply pressure, then get to the turret and do exactly this. You can't rush it because there's just so much. You misstep, arrow comes out, that's a pick, that's you having to reset after getting killed, and that could snowball the game. And that's why Rampage just down in pressure in terms of turrets, but up in kills and the threat that they have.
Rampage does have to be very, very aware of how low HP this current outer turret is, though. Likely have to abandon that right now.
And you can see how far back both Yutori and Dara are playing, just not taking any risks there of a dive. They don't need to protect it. The turret goes down. They're still up in gold, 2,000 gold off of farming, but also having, like, look at the jungle. It's superior farming, but also having more kills. You can see, looking for something here.
Fabulous moving in to make sure he defends Naru. Taunt not finding its way onto Evie, but even if it did, that's not really a killable target
Yeah,
for Gragas.
Tussle had thrown a Q over the wall, and Naru had dipped right out of the bush in time, so almost connected to Q there. And the composition from SuperMassive, the win condition is very clear, but I think the big issue is how do you push your lead if it's not a slow siege situation? You saw them try to land like a charm, a root collar, into a Galio ulti, right? It's like they're trying to get Galio to have an offensive ulti. Well, you have to wait for Rampage to engage on you, and you have to have Galio nearby. It's kind of difficult, but you do have to set up for the sieges and take it slow.
And the stat that appeared on the screen just a moment ago in the regular LJL split in 2017 spring, Rampage is 19-2 with a lead at 20 minutes. So based off of those numbers, things look promising. Leowall going to be separating the team. He's been sidestepping away from the arrow. Ramune going to be brought low. The damage comes out. Zeitnot's able to find kill number 1. And things have gone straight to hell for Rampage. Fabulous right in with a 4-man taunt. Going to be backing up now as Rampage tries to turn things back around if they can. Zeitnot still just firing shot after shot into these guys. Root collar over the wall, finding its way onto Evie. Skomage goes over as well. Blast Cone keeps the top laner for Rampage alive, but SuperMassive gets not only their second Drake, but their first kill to go with it.
Double doge?
Tempting fate here. No energy left on Tussle for now. Kick is not going to do much of anything.
Sending a message, but also blowing his flash there. I actually think that's awful from Tussle because now he doesn't have that kickback threat. Evie caught by a charm.
Way too close.
You got him!
The last tick of Ignite takes him down. The Dark Passage doesn't find its way there in time for the shield. And Rampage has just met with some disaster.
SuperMassive set up, got the Drake, and then Rampage decided to fight them after. Ramune's initiation was not good. He cuts off the team, but he gets the tank in the front. They're able to play around this Weaver's wall. Now it won't go down, and you saw Fabulous even just trying to throw an ultimate there. Great taunt flash onto 4 members of Rampage to stop the damage on the backline coming through. And now you can see Evie was looking for something like a body slam flash, couldn't find it there. And they're lacking that mid laner, they're lacking that zone control. The Talia offers so much when she's up in terms of zone control, but when she's down, absolutely nothing.
And we talked about SuperMassive being this Turkish super team, this team that was put together to dominate the TCL, to be victorious, and now that they have proved successful in that goal, their goal is to now say, hey, it's not just Turkey, we can be competitive on any stage, and with plays like that where you can win a team fight and get 2 objectives off of it, while behind 3,000 gold. That's exactly how you send that message.
There's a lot of pride for the all-Turkish super team. Like we said, they're the actually only all-Turkish roster in the TCL. And SuperMassive trying to do their country proud. Also, Rampage, I gotta say, at the same time, they're trying to put Japan on the map.
Yeah, because they're the ones who have the first impression to make here.
Yeah, because a lot of people have not seen any team from this region internationally. They haven't made an MSI. They've made some wildcard tournaments, like I said, but they haven't made Worlds either. Whereas Turkey and both Brazil in this group have done so previously.
Rampage, having lost the larger lead that they have, still hanging on by a hair to a small lead. But at this point, Zyrene, this is anyone's game. Could go left, could go right, could go up, could go down. It all comes down to who's able to pull the trigger properly and play to their win condition. The picks versus the protect.
Yeah, it's the execution of these team fights and the setup right ahead of time, too, because we're looking at CS advantage in the jungle here. Tussle's up almost 100 already.
Yeah, he's really out-farming his opponent.
Yeah, I will say, though, for, like, Ivern, it kind of cheats because when you do Krugs, you only get 2 CS. You don't get the little ones on top of it, so he kind of gets taxed. So you are missing out on 8 CS there.
8 CS
every
and
time.
80 gold. Yep.
Yeah, every time.
Because it's the tiny ones. So a little bit unfortunate for him. Evie might be finding himself in a pretty rough spot here. Taunt gonna land, trap is laid down, more damage coming out, more burst coming through, and I don't know if he's getting himself away today. Nah, not happening. Zeitnot grabbing the kill.
Yep.
Number 3 for SuperMassive.
Getting that revenge there, and now it just seems like the solo laners are falling apart. Evie seemed a little desperate there, but also Ramune on the engage kind of dropped the ball. So now we're seeing these two guys who were doing well initially start to teeter off, and now it's going to be definitely on Tussle, who's been performing well as Utori. But I talk about individuals. When you're still down a member, individuals can do what they want, but you're still going to lose these objectives. You can see 4 turrets to 0. I don't think SuperMassive stop here either.
No, they're still going. They've got Brushmaker, they've got Caitlyn traps, they've got all kinds of tools. It'd be very devastating in this siege situation. Build over Peacemaker to clear out the wave. Still got minions marching up. Fabulous going to be defending the flank, making sure that Rampage can't get in here very easily. Wins the floor, looking to block things off. Evie coming in from the side. Wants to make his way into this fight, but Fabulous, such a brick wall to have to try to get past.
Yeah, and Ramune a little late there as well. Used the Weaver's wall, but it didn't cut anybody off. He was top, clearing out a wave that had been shoved in previously. And so it took him a long time to actually get with the rest of the team. And that's where SuperMassive saw the opportunity, chunking out that bottom turret a little bit. It's about, 2/3 HP. So 66% left on it.
And playing against a team like this, like what SuperMassive has drafted, if you do start to fall behind, it just feels so hopeless because there's so much shielding potential.
Yeah.
There's so much zone control potential. What do you even do to this?
You ban Ivern. You ban, like calling all MSI teams, Ivern is really powerful.
He's actually really good right now.
Yeah, he's super good.
Well, we're sort of seeing how that's being demonstrated now, even when he falls behind in terms of 100 CS, when he's 0, 1, and 1 compared to 2, 0, and 2, he still contributes to the game because he buys support items.
Very heavily.
His build is twice as cheap.
It's also cheap. Yeah, exactly. It's super cheap, and he's able to just build it up and then dish out the support as long as Zeitnot's in a good position. And we're even talking about the people he's supporting don't even have like heavy damage items. There was a QSS purchase from Zeitnot. We see that the Ahri actually did go for a death cap second item, so Naru really trying to slot in some extra damage in his build. And then look at that. Fabulous Knight's Vow completed, immediately put onto Zeitnot there.
And one thing to note, we just mentioned how Zeitnot's damage wasn't super heavy. He didn't have great items, but as soon as we say that, he goes back to base, he completes the Infinity Edge, grabs a second Zeal. So now he is going to start seeing those multipliers.
Yeah, now you're in a great position. SuperMassive, despite them being a little bit down, a little bit up in gold, sorry, they're still going to be up in pressure, up in Drakes, 2 Ocean Drakes as well. That means in the siege situation, you really have to have that one and done. You have to have that go in as Rampage and get the engage and make the engage work. Because if it doesn't work, they're going to back off. They're going to regen.
Yeah, you thought this team was scary already. It just keeps getting worse. Rampage. This game is just so slippery for them. They can't seem to get a grasp on things.
Oh,
the arrow comes out.
Trying to make it engage.
Not the guy that things are going to work onto, though. Fabulous just jumping right back in. No concern in the world. Evie now trying to work his way in the fight as Dara is going to be in some danger. Zeitnot kicked backwards. Wild Growth to keep him alive. Tussle shot to pieces. Zeitnot grabbing kill number 1. Make it a double as they tie the game up in kills. They go 2 for 0. And now they've got so many options on what they can do. Evie going to be chased down next. Naru getting himself away. Taken pretty low on this one. Ping's coming out onto Baron.
Naru really low, going to pick up some honey fruit, get himself back to almost half, but they do have the double Ocean Drake, and they're going to be aggressive here.
Evie continuing to try to go in.
They almost do no damage to Fabulous. The fact that he has that almost max W, sorry, it is maxed at this point, 5 ranks into it, so much damage reduction, he just gets to walk up into the face of the team.
3-man taunt from Fabulous. Still tanking as long as he can. Going to be juggled back, though. Good control so far, but Zeitnot's able to find his way into the fight. One more auto attack.
Oh, that's
double! As he grabs himself another double kill.
Man!
6-1-1. Turkey's #1 threat, Zyrene.
Man, they brought an RPG, but SuperMassive, they bring a machine gun. They put Zeitnot in the front, and he just goes off. 6-1-6 after these fights. Arrow hits Fabulous, and then he takes almost no damage here. The shielding, the taunt, making sure he has the damage reduction, and then they engage on the side, try to get Zeitnot, who then actually does get away there with the flash, make sure he isn't in the right way for trajectory to be knocked into the team, and then he just cleans up. The guy got 4 kills throughout the course of this fight, and it just goes back and forth. Like, this AD carry, I said when you engage on him, you have to make it swift. It has to be fast. That was sloppy engage. He flashed away. Zeitnot played it right. outplayed the situation, and now you can see SuperMassive looking for that Baron.
Now Baron's the attempt. Ivern throws the brushes up to make a wall of vision that's hard to see over for Rampage. Remember, you can't just block Baron off with the brushes anymore.
Ooh, they got the teleport. They all pulled off of Baron when the teleport was coming through from Evie. He's actually a little bit closer. Now they're coming in on the side, though.
Evie makes his way into the fight the long way. Baron down to 3,500.
Oh, they don't want to do the Baron, they want to fight.
Trying to jump in, trying to get the taunt, lands it onto Ramune, who's going to go ahead and try to get himself away from that one. Redemption coming down from both sides. Naru trying to go around the back, trying to come around from the flank. Naru's nice burst, going to be bursted down though. Stovage number 2. Tussle goes down. Zeitnot is still huge. It's a 2 for 2, and they're in pursuit.
But he also has the Lulu. He's going to keep running forward.
Winds of War find their way onto Evie. Yutori having a very hard time standing toe-to-toe with Zeitnot's Caitlyn right now.
Yeah, this guy been hyped up a whole bunch. The new member, we talked about Fab Fabulous when SuperMassive was back at MSI 2016. They had Stomach, Naru, and Dumbledoge. Fab Fabulous was a sub, and then they brought Zeitnot on, and he's definitely been an upgrade for this roster. And now they're putting all of their eggs in that basket.
And it's paying off pretty nicely. Rapid Fire Cannon was completed after that last big team fight that we saw them win, so he's allowed to have that extra poking potential now. And in the most recent fight, Ramune trying to grab a little bit of threaded volley damage there, but it doesn't really do anything.
He's going back and forth. He was kind of trying to shuffle across him. Make it look good there. You can see SuperMassive take almost no damage from that Baron. Fab Fabulous still so damn tanky. Taunt does land the charm, does require a QSS there from Yutori. And then Naru goes in, gets blown up, and then it looks like, yeah, the kick not able to be used there from Tussle in time. So he's just trying to get to Zeitnot, trying to get to somebody to deal damage and kill this AD carry, but it's proving very difficult for this Lee Sin to find the engage.
Tussle just not getting the angles he needs. One thing worth noting is here in about a minute and a half, the third and final Ocean Drake will spawn, and if SuperMassive can grab themselves that, their regeneration is going to be bananas. Iceborne Gauntlet done on Fab Fabulous gives him that much more control in team fights as well, so he's able to create those slowing zones on top of his taunts.
And this game has been crazy because it's been 4 turrets to 0 the whole time, but let's harken back a few minutes to when Rampage had 5 kills, SuperMassive had 0.
Yeah.
They've won the last few team fights pretty handily, and they've been playing the objective bait very well.
Rampage went 5-0, and then SuperMassive went 9-2. When you look at it in 2 halves like that, SuperMassive has had a very impressive second part of this game.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, that is one note that we had about this team going into MSI and looking at how these teams play from these different regions. SuperMassive is a team that has a slower early play style. They aren't expected to just completely go off at the start, win the lane, do all sorts of crazy stuff. They play it slower early, get themselves their solid footing, find their ground, and then they go. And they have been able to do that successfully so far this game.
And now you can see Rampage is trying to make sure that nothing happens around this Baron. I'm checking out the damage reduction from the Galio. 47% damage reduction for himself while it's being charged. And then also the damage reduction at the end. So he can get about 3.5 seconds of damage reduction on the Shield of Duran, which the cooldown starts as soon as you hit the button. And it's an 8-second cooldown, so there's very little downtime on his damage reduction. And of course, for those people who don't really know, the ultimate will give the damage reduction to the person that he ulties. So 47% damage reduction to the person that he ulties. Basically, whoever he ulties taking half damage for that duration.
Yeah, imagine your Caitlyn has tank items.
It's even worse than that. He has tank items, then he has a Knight's Vow on top of him, which means he's going to take 12% of his damage on top of it. It's just ridiculous. Get to Zeitnot.
Very hard to kill Zeitnot.
You're like, I need to get through these shields that have all this mitigation behind it as well. It becomes ridiculous.
This is the composition that SuperMassive drafted. This was the exact idea they had in mind.
They got pretty much everything they'd want.
Yeah. I mean, the argument that you could have made was, oh, they don't have the Shen. The Shen got banned away.
Yeah.
But the Galio's doing just as much work right now.
Gives you a damage reduction instead of a shield. Still has a semi-global ultimate. And actually did pretty well during the laning phase.
Only thing you're missing is something like an Orianna in the mid lane.
Yeah, the Orianna is the one that you can put a little bit of an asterisk or addendum to it. But Naru on this Ahri seems to be doing quite well for himself. Down in CS, didn't have like the easiest of lane phases, but it does give them a way to kind of engage with the Galio ultimate as they go back to the Baron one more time. Once more with feeling.
All right.
Massive get back in there.
Baron dance.
It always,
Again.
this feels like the Baron tease. It feels like they really want to do it, but, you know, we'll see. Zeitnot caught, and
There's the QSS. That's what it's for, right there. Keeping yourself out of that danger. Fabulous making his way into the fight, jumping in on top of everybody. Taunt gonna be channeled. Taunt gonna be finding its way onto 2. Damage coming out from Naru.
Oh,
Keeping
nice
himself
kick.
safe for now. Tussle getting himself back. Rampage disengages this one.
This is the reset you want, though, if you're Rampage with Supermassive. This is the thing. Rampage have to reset fast, and they have to figure out how they're going to do it. Is it lifesteal off minions? Because right now, this Baron's going to be started up again.
Baron going down.
Evie
Not
has
super
teleport.
quickly.
Evie has
He's going to
teleport.
TP into the top lane, trying to make his way into this fight. Rampage cannot afford to just let this one go. They've got to find some kind of a miracle here.
Tussle?
Over the wall, he might go, but he can't do it. Stovich has the secure. Tussle now might be in some trouble. Fabulous trying to lock him down. Stomage still in the Baron pit, will not find the root collar over the wall, and Baron goes the way of Supermassive.
Baron pick up there. The flash and the QSS from Zeitnot had been used, and that looked like a moment of opportunity for Rampage. But the resounding actual engage afterwards, watch Naru. He goes in, then he gets the ultimate from Galio, uses the Zonias there, and then he really just waits for a charm over the side. But because of the fact that Zeitnot flashed away and had to use his QSS, that was a moment where, if you're Supermassive, a lot of teams would say, Caitlyn just used key cooldowns, we have to reset. And instead, they said, no, we have to engage. Naru goes in, go ultimate from Fabulous follows up. So Supermassive showing it's not really just the Zeitnot show.
Everybody's got their role to play.
And it was the right move because they chunked out Rampage enough to force them to choose between resetting, which means that it's not fast enough that you have to go for a steal.
By the way, Zeitnot is nearly full build as he will just shred through any health bar that happens to wander too close to him. Last Whisper being evolved into either a Mortal Reminder or a Lord Dominic's Regards will be the last finishing touch he has to make to this one. As the Brushmakers and the Caitlyn traps and the Baron buff is going to make a very hard situation of this one for Rampage. Supermassive continuing their push, 5 men strong, not bothering with any kind of a 4-1 split, 3-1-1 kind of a split, just trying to brute force this down with the power of Zeitnot.
Yep, give him some brush, give him some shields, walk up, put Fabulous in the front.
Ramonade not in a spot he needs to be in. Yutori now going to be in some danger next, trying to get himself away. Tussle trying to protect, and Dara is going to be going down second. 2 dead on the side of Rampage, a double kill for Zeitnot, 8-1 for the Turkish AD carry as he brings himself and his team onto the Nexus. Turret number 1 falls, turret number 2 going to be going down pretty rapidly. Tussle jumping himself into the fight, but he's not going to do much of anything. Guardian Angel popped, Daisy still alive, busted by the barrel, Tussle is done, Zeitnot is legendary. The Nexus is going to fall in just a moment, but not before Yutori will fall with it, and Supermassive finds their win.
Turkey, the super team, coming up with a win there in their first match at MSI. Over the hyped-up Japan team, there was an enigma there. They started off the game 5-0, but Supermassive were able to fall back on their experience, their camaraderie, the fact that this is a lot of the roster that was there last year, and able to come together with a composition that I think is incredibly powerful and able to just provide the support for the new guy, Zeitnot.
Absolutely. This was a composition that fell behind early. You already talked about the 5-0, and they were able to keep a cool head, make sure that they stayed in the right spot, not let it get to them, and then find their comeback opportunities. Find a way to get back into the game, get Zeitnot just massive to the point where he was able to carry that. Because you talked about it, you know, we mentioned when we were talking about the Caitlyn QSS, how do we lose? Zeitnot gets caught. Let's make sure that we don't have any of those weaknesses. Zeitnot becomes the monster he had to be.
Yeah, and I feel like this group, Group A, just ban Ivern. I feel like everybody should be banning Ivern because right now you have BRTT, you have Zeitnot, you have King, and you also have Yutori, who was 2-1-3 in that losing game until the final moments. You have 4 really good AD carries, and I feel like whoever picks up those protect the AD carry comps and strategies and executes better on them may be the victor in this group with just such a simple strategy with Ivern involved.
It does seem like such a key path to victory, but to give us their thoughts on what that win from Supermassive meant, let's go ahead and send things over to Dash and the analysts.
Thank you very much, Captain Flowers. Irene there talking about how teams in Group A here should start considering banning Ivern with this supermassive win built entirely around their ADC Zeitnot in the bot lane. But I mean, Ivern's just one of the many champions that can support an ADC or an ADC-focused composition. In this comp alone, we had 3 very supportive champions with the Lulu and the Galio to boot. But let's talk about this champion select and kind of the evolving meta of building around the ADCs and letting them be the carries.
To me, it seems like we're seeing a lot of value right now from these teams on Caitlyn and Lulu in particular. Not only is Lulu an actually powerful support in the bottom lane, but it's guaranteeing push, right? And while in game 1, we saw that what can happen if you end up going in an all-in scenario, game 2 here, we see clearly what can happen if this lane is given the freedom to just throw around their pushing power.
Right, more reminiscent of what you'd expect to see by taking Caitlyn and Lulu into the bot lane. The turret goes down at 11 minutes with a 22 CS advantage. Okay, that's what we're looking for when we pick up these 2 champions.
Yeah, I mean, Caitlyn's definitely a little bit of like a tightrope act where you're just trying to keep the pressure up as much as you can. You always want to be pushing, always want to be aggressive, but you never want to get all in. You never want to get hit by a thresh hook or ganked by the jungler, and that's basically what happened this time around. We see them take that turret extremely early, and it kind of opens the map up for the kind of way that you see they want to play this game out, which a lot of grouping up around Caitlyn, a lot of just pressuring, mowing down turrets, and eventually they get their gold lead mostly through that.
And the thing that surprises me is the fact that when you know you're going up against the Caitlyn Lulu, what you expect is to have this push happen, right? So you have one of 2 answers. One is you try and make a play happen so you can shut that bottom lane down, like we saw from BRTT and Jude earlier on in the day, or you just make the trade. You accept the fact that you're going to lose that tower, and you try and get something else on the opposite side of the map. What we saw from Rampage is they're the kind of team that want to try and make plays happen, and while it failed in the bottom lane, they were able to find some avenues later on.
Yes, exactly what you're talking about. 14 minutes into the game, we see a successful engage from Rampage in the top lane. 2-0 in their favor, and yet not a ton of gold going to come into their pockets because they failed to push anything following this one fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea where you know the enemy team's going to move up to the top side, try and pressure around that. You camp the brushes. Sure, one of them was warded, but it's still able to set the fight up. And then a well-played fight there by the Gragas being able to ult Caitlyn back in. A little disappointed to see the QSS picked up early. When you're pressuring with the Caitlyn that hard, just trust your team to play correctly around you. The QSS helps for the Ashe arrow and the Thresh hook, but then they also have 2 different ways of displacing you into the team. So I'm not a huge fan of the QSS purchase, and you saw there, she just gets Gragas ulted.
But back to your point, Vidius, of the options that were presented to Rampage in that scenario was one, to match in the top lane as they did and try and force a play. The other option is to just go to the other side of the map and begin trading those turrets. We have to remember they had a 3K gold advantage due to kills across the map at this point. So the fact that they opted into only matching those turret takes, they ended up letting SuperMassive back into the game.
Yeah, the thing is, after that play happened up in the top lane, I feel like when you have all 5 members in the top half of the map, sure, you can send your Gragas back down to bot, you can send the Talia back to mid, but you have 3 members top, just force that tower down, right? Just guarantee some kind of gold or control of the map so the map then opens up. That means you can just keep swapping and moving around the map so you can keep making these trades happen. Instead, they don't, and they stay in this extended laning phase, which is the ideal scenario for a Caitlyn Lulu. They can get to that 2-3 item spike that they're so desperately waiting for, and then later on in these big fights, we saw how unkillable this Caitlyn really was.
I mean, you kind of speaks to how Rampage plays. We were talking about how they like to use these really set plays where they're able to like join up and use all their champions together, and you saw them get that one successful on the top side, but that's what they kept going for, and after you get one good look, and you have to start getting objectives at some point, and they really failed to do that, and it's a little concerning because we talk about how, oh, the Rampage, we were both saying they have this good coordination, but as soon as they got into full 5v5s, it did seem like they were kind of outclassed by their counterparts.
Let's take a look at one of those 28 minutes in here. Zeitnot going to go crazy on the ADC, but of course he's got essentially 3 supports to back him up here. We also have to remember that in contrast to the Caitlyn played in game 1, we had the iEdge and the Runans here as opposed to a Blade of the Rune King, so plenty more damage coming out from the ADC.
Just bear in mind this composition coming out from Rampage is not really designed to instantly kill a single member on this composition, and when you have a sustained drawn out fight with champions like the Ashe, like the Talia, it becomes nearly impossible to kill that Caitlyn. And just to throw a couple numbers in there, you have the Knight's Vow and the Galio ultimate. That Caitlyn had 48% damage reduction just from the ultimate. Add a Knight's Vow on top of that, that's 60% damage reduction. So that's before any of the shields, any of the heals, any of the other support from the rest of the team. That's just the Galio.
That's a tank, Caitlyn.
That's like
That is a legitimate tank, frontline Caitlyn.
So I understand the Galio pick being great for adding more defense onto your Caitlyn.
Yeah,
And
but you saw some qualms with it?
yeah, I still like looking at
I
the
agree,
Galio.
I agree, yeah.
I mean, like it's crazy when you hear the numbers and you see it sometimes work out. In
Well,
situations.
hash them out with me. What do you see as the failing here? Or
Well, so you just look at like what could another tank have done for this team comp, because the Galio pushed really hard early on and they ended up having that split situation where the Lee Sin's on the top side of the map jungling for the first 5 minutes.
Yep.
Galio not super happy about that, gets ganked and killed early on, later gets solo killed because now he's losing the lane versus Gragas. And then late in the game, sure, it provides more crazy shielding for your Caitlyn, but at some point you kind of hit
you
like
over-index.
Yeah, you're doing too much of the same thing. I would love to have seen a little bit more engaged out of the team comp, but I mean, if you can pull out the Galio pick and people aren't familiar with it, it can do some cool stuff.
He also did a fair amount of damage.
Oh, yeah,
21
Galio's
K
cute.
in the game. I was actually that was a little surprising, but the 40K from Caitlyn there and Zeitnot to close it out. Ultimately, Supermassive and Turkey start their tournament off with a win here. We have to go to a quick break. When we come back, we'll see if Rampage can bounce back against the hometown favorites, the Red Cannons. Don't touch that browser. You're watching the 2017 MSI play-in stage.
Today, although it will start line early as Dara finds himself a little bit far forward. We're going to be dropping the box. And double doge is destroyed. Stovich going to be taken down next. Dara's going to be in some danger. Zeitnot kicked backwards. Wild Growth to keep him alive. Tussle shot to pieces. Zeitnot grabbing kill number 1. Make it a double. Can going to be juggled back, though. Good control so far, but Zeitnot's able to find his way into the fight. One more auto attack. Oh, that's double! As he grabs himself another double kill. Naru trying to go around the back, trying to come around from the flank. Naru's nice burst, gonna be bursted down though. Stovich number 2. Tussle goes down. Zeitnot is still huge. It's a 2 for 2.
Put Fabulous in the front. Ramone
not in a spot he needs to be in. Utori now gonna be in some danger next, trying to get himself away. Tussle trying to protect, and Dara is gonna be going down second. And Supermassive finds their win.